The emergency beacon's shrill cry echoed through the bridge of the Galactic Federation medical transport Serenity's Hope. Captain Zal then, S4 eyes darted between the holographic displays showing their dire situation. His ship carried 3,000 wounded civilians from the mining disaster on Kepler 442b, their life support systems failing one by one. Status report, Zal then commanded, his translator converting his chittering language into standard galactic. Sir, our main reactor is operating at 12% capacity. Life support will fail in 6 hours, maybe less, reported his chief engineer, a crystalline being whose body pulsed with worried orange light. The hyperspace drive is completely offline. We're stranded in the void sector. The void sector. Even thinking the name made Zal then's carapace shiver. No civilized species traveled here voluntarily. The region sat between 3 major trade routes, a dead zone of space where ships went to disappear. Pirates avoided it. Military patrols never ventured this far from inhabited systems. If they died here, their bodies would drift in the eternal darkness until the universe itself grew cold. Have we received any response to our distress calls? Zal then asked, though he already knew the answer. Nothing, Captain. We're broadcasting on all frequencies, but the nearest Federation vessel is 4 days away at maximum speed. 4 days. They had 6 hours. Zal then looked at the medical bay readouts. 3,000 beings from 17 different species lay in various states of critical condition. The mining platform's collapse had been sudden and catastrophic. Falling debris, toxic gas leaks, structural fires, it had been a miracle anyone survived at all. Now they faced a slower, more certain death in the cold vacuum of space. Sir, called his communications officer, a small mammalian creature with oversized ears, I'm detecting something unusual. Define unusual, Lieutenant Kress. There's a ship approaching our position. It's not showing up in our databases. The energy signature is completely unknown. Zal then's mandibles clicked together nervously. Unknown ships in the void sector meant one of two things, either experimental military vessels conducting illegal weapons tests, or something worse. Pirates at least followed certain rules of engagement. Unknown vessels followed no rules at all. Put it on screen. The main display flickered, then, showed a vessel unlike anything in the Federation archives. It was massive, easily twice the size of their medical transport, but its design seemed almost primitive. Where Federation ships were elegant curves of bioengineered coral and living metal, this thing appeared to be built from angular plates of raw steel. Weapons bristled from every surface, not the refined energy cannons of civilized warfare, but crude projectile launchers and what looked like chemical explosive missiles. By the ancient stars, whispered his navigation officer. What is that thing? Before anyone could answer, their communications array crackled to life. A voice spoke an accented but understandable galactic standard, though the underlying tones suggested a species no one had encountered before. Federation vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran ship Indomitable. We received your distress beacon. What is your situation? Zal then felt his breathing spiracles flutter. Terrans? He'd never heard of such a species. A quick search of the database returned no results. Yet somehow, this unknown ship had not only detected their beacon but had arrived in impossible time. Unknown vessel, Zal then replied carefully, this is Captain Zal then, of the Federation Medical Transport Serenity's Hope. We are carrying 3,000 wounded civilians. Our reactor is failing and we have less than 6 hours of life support remaining. A pause. Then, understood, Serenity's Hope. Stand by for boarding. Boarding? Zal then's voice rose an octave. We did not request boarding. We need emergency reactor assistance and medical supplies. Captain, with respect, you need more help than you realize. My chief engineer is reviewing your ship's schematics from our sensors. Your reactor isn't just failing, it's going to breach. In about 4 hours, you're going to have a contained antimatter explosion that will vaporize everything within 50 kilometers. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing systems. Zal then felt his legs go weak. Antimatter breach. The words every spacer feared most. It meant instant death for everyone aboard, and their distress beacon had probably drawn this unknown ship into the same death trap. We had no readings indicating breach probability, Zal then managed. Your sensors aren't calibrated to detect the specific cascade failure pattern. We've seen it before. Captain, I need you to trust me. We're going to evacuate your people to our ship. All 3,000? That's impossible. No ship has that kind of capacity. Captain Chen to Indomitable prep emergency expansion protocols. We're taking on 3,000 refugees. Yes, I know what the manual says about maximum capacity. Ignore it. Zal then heard another voice respond in the background, speaking in what must be the Terran's native language. The tone was questioning but not insubordinate. Captain Chen replied in the same language, her voice firm but not harsh. Sorry about that, Chen continued in Galactic Standard. My crew needed clarification on a few procedures. Captain Zal then, we're launching boarding pods now. My people will help coordinate the evacuation. Through the viewport, Zal then watched as several small craft detached from the massive human ship. They moved with surprising grace for vehicles built by a species that favored such brutal-looking architecture. As they approached, he could see they were much larger than they had first appeared. Each pod could probably hold 100 beings comfortably. Captain, Lieutenant Kress called out, his voice tight with worry, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from our reactor. The containment field is fluctuating. How long? Zal then asked. At this rate of decay, 3 hours, maybe less. The first human boarding pod docked with their ship. Through the airlock came beings unlike any Zal then had ever seen. They were bipedal like several Federation species, but there was something about the way they moved that suggested predator reflexes. Their eyes faced forward like hunters, not to the sides like prey. They wore what appeared to be environmental suits, but the design was clearly intended to provide protection in combat situations as well as vacuum. The lead figure removed their helmet, revealing a face that was simultaneously alien and disturbingly familiar. The creature, human, Zal then corrected himself, had skin the color of light brown earth, with dark hair tied back in a practical manner. Her eyes were a startling blue color that seemed to assess everything in seconds. I'm Commander Rodriguez, she said, her voice carrying an accent different from her captain's. I'm here to coordinate the evacuation. Where's your chief medical officer? That would be me, said Dr. Veltar, stepping forward on her 6 legs. The arachnid physician had been working non-stop since the rescue began, her normally pristine medical robe stained with various bodily fluids from multiple species. I must warn you, many of our patients cannot be moved without specialized life support equipment. We anticipated that, Rodriguez replied. My team includes combat medics cross-trained in xenobiology. We've brought portable life support units compatible with all known Federation species. How could you possibly have such equipment? Dr. Veltar asked. You're not in our databases. We've never encountered your species before. Rodriguez exchanged a glance with one of her team members. That's a longer conversation. Right now, let's focus on keeping everyone alive. Dr. Veltar, I need you to triage your patients into 3 groups, those who can walk with minimal assistance, those who need stretcher transport, and those who require intensive care during transfer. As the human medics spread throughout the ship, Zal then watched in amazement at their efficiency. They moved with practiced precision, adapting their equipment to species they claimed never to have encountered. When they found a gaseous collective member whose containment field was failing, they somehow produced a compatible emergency chamber within minutes. When a crystalline patient's resonance frequency became dangerously unstable, the humans calibrated a stabilization field as if they'd done it countless times before. Captain, his engineer called out, the humans are requesting access to our reactor chamber. For what purpose? They say they want to try stabilizing it. Zal then felt his mandibles click together nervously. Allowing unknown aliens access to their ship's most critical system went against every regulation in the Federation manual. But then, again, they were facing certain death anyway. Allow it, he decided. 2 hours later, as the evacuation continued, Zal then received an impossible report. Sir, his engineer said, his crystalline body now pulsing with confused green light, the humans have actually improved our reactor's stability. They've bought us another 4 hours. How? I have no idea. They did something to the magnetic containment field that our own engineers said was theoretically impossible. When I asked them to explain, they said something about percussive maintenance and, have you tried turning it off and on again? Through the bridge speakers, Captain Chen's voice crackled to life again. Captain Zal then, we've evacuated about half your people. My ship's medical bay is working at full capacity. How are your critical patients doing? Better than expected, Zalven admitted. Your people seem remarkably skilled at treating species they've never encountered. A pause. Captain, there's something you should know about humans. We're what you might call adaptable. When we encounter a problem, we tend to find ways around it, through it, or over it. Sometimes under it. Occasionally we just hit it with a hammer until it works. You hit your technology with hammers? Metaphorically speaking. Usually. Captain, I need to ask you something important. After we finish this evacuation, what's your plan? Your ship isn't going to be spaceworthy much longer, even with our repairs. Zalven felt his shoulders sag. He'd been trying not to think about that. We'll have to send a message to Federation Command and wait for a proper rescue ship. It could be weeks before they can arrange transport for 3,000 refugees. What if I told you we could give you a ride? To where? The nearest Federation station is 12 days away by hyperdrive. Actually, it's 8 days by our drive system. We've got some improvements on the standard design. Before Zalven could ask what she meant, alarms began blaring throughout his ship. His engineer's panicked voice cut through the noise. Captain! The reactor containment is failing faster than predicted. Cascade failure in 40 minutes. Through the calm, he heard Captain Chen curse in her native language. Then, all teams, emergency evacuation protocols now. We're out of time. What followed was organized chaos. The humans moved through the ship like a precision military unit, but Zalven noticed they weren't abandoning the most difficult cases. When they found patients too critical to move quickly, they brought additional life support equipment instead of leaving them behind. When Dr. Veltar insisted on staying with her most vulnerable patients, Commander Rodriguez simply handed her a human emergency suit and said, "Then, we stay together." 35 minutes later, the last boarding pod detached from the Serenity's Hope. Zalven watched from the human ship's bridge as his vessel grew smaller in the distance. He had expected to feel sadness at losing his command, but instead felt only relief. Everyone was alive. Containment failure in 3, 2, 1. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. The Serenity's Hope became a brief new star, its antimatter reactor consuming the ship in an instant of pure energy. The shockwave struck the human vessel moments later, but the Indomitable barely shuddered. Impressive shields, Zalven observed. Captain Chen, standing beside him on the bridge, shrugged. We built them to last. Captain, I believe your people are going to be comfortable during the journey. My crew has set up temporary quarters that should accommodate everyone's environmental needs. I still don't understand how you were able to respond so quickly to our distress call, Zalven said. Or how you knew to bring evacuation equipment for species you've never encountered. Chen smiled, and Zalven noticed her teeth were flat except for 4 pointed ones that suggested her species had evolved from omnivores. That's because we have encountered your species before, Captain. All of them. We've been watching the Federation for quite some time. Watching? From where? From the places you don't look. Captain Zalven, has anyone ever told you about Deathworlds? Zalven felt his breathing spiracles contract. Every civilized being knew about Deathworlds, planets so hostile that no intelligent life could possibly evolve there. Worlds with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperature variations, and violent weather patterns that would kill any known species within hours. Deathworlds are theoretical constructs, he said carefully. No life could survive on such planets. That's what the Federation believes, Chen agreed. And that's exactly why nobody expected aid from us. Captain, welcome aboard humanity's first official contact with the Galactic Federation. You might want to sit down for the rest of this conversation. The revelation that humans came from a death world should have been impossible to accept, yet Zalven found himself believing it as he toured the Indomitable. Everything about the ship screamed of a species that had learned to survive in impossible conditions. The corridors were wider than necessary, designed to allow rapid movement during emergencies. Emergency supply caches were hidden throughout the vessel, accessible even if main storage areas were compromised. Most tellingly, every system seemed to have at least 3 backup options. Your people expect disasters, Zalven observed as Commander Rodriguez led him through the expanded refugee quarters. We planned for them, she corrected. On Earth, our homeworld, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Usually at the worst possible moment. So we prepare for everything. They passed through what Rodriguez called the gymnasium, where several human crew members were demonstrating their homeworld's gravity to fascinated Federation refugees. The humans were casually performing feats that would require mechanical assistance for most species, lifting massive weights, moving with fluid grace despite wearing environmental suits, reacting to thrown objects with reflexes that seemed almost supernatural. A group of young Zelanti were watching in amazement as a human named Jackson performed something called push-ups. The Zelanti, whose homeworld had half-standard gravity, could barely manage to lift their own body weight under normal conditions. Jackson was lifting himself repeatedly using only his arms, while maintaining a conversation about stellar navigation. "How is this possible?" asked one of the Zelanti children. Jackson paused in his exercise. "Earth's gravity is about twice what you're used to, kid. Plus, our atmosphere is almost 21% oxygen, which most species consider toxic. We breathe poison and live under crushing weight. Makes standard galactic conditions feel pretty comfortable." Dr. Veltar approached Sal then, with a concerned expression. "Captain, I've been examining the human medical facilities. Their understanding of xenobiology is far more advanced than they should possess. They have detailed anatomical charts for every Federation species, including some that are classified information." Dr. Rodriguez, Zal then, called out to the human commander, "How long has your species been observing the Federation?" "About 200 years, by your calendar. We achieved spaceflight and immediately discovered we weren't alone in the galaxy. First contact protocols suggested we should observe before making ourselves known. So we watched. We learned your languages, studied your cultures, monitored your technology. For 2 centuries? Without anyone detecting you?" Rodriguez smiled, and, like Captain Chan, her expression revealed those predator teeth. "Captain, humans evolved as persistence hunters on a world that actively tried to kill us every day. We're very good at staying hidden when we need to." They entered the human medical bay, where Dr. Sarah Kim was treating a gaseous collective member whose containment field had been damaged in the mining accident. The human physician was using equipment that looked primitive compared to Federation medical technology, yet her patient was responding better than expected. "Dr. Kim," Veltar said, "I've never seen treatment protocols like yours. Where did you learn to work with gaseous physiology?" "Medical school on Luna," Kim replied, carefully adjusting the containment field parameters. "We've been studying Federation medical records for decades. But, honestly, a lot of this is just common sense. Gas pressure, electromagnetic containment, temperature regulation, the principles are universal, even if the applications vary by species." "You have schools dedicated to treating alien species?" "We have schools dedicated to everything," Kim said with a laugh. "Humans are curious. When we discover something new, we study it from every possible angle. Then, we figure out how to fix it, improve it, or blow it up. Sometimes all 3. Captain Chan's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, all department heads to the bridge. "We have company." Zal then followed Rodriguez to the bridge, where the main display showed 3 Federation Navy ships approaching their position. The vessels were sleek predatory designs, a heavy cruiser flanked by 2 destroyer escorts. Their weapons were powered but not locked on target. "Federation vessels, this is Admiral Kreshtaw aboard the Swift Justice," came a stern voice over the communications array. "You are operating in restricted space with an unregistered vessel. Identify yourselves immediately." Captain Chen stepped forward. "Admiral Kreshtaw, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Indomitable. We are currently providing humanitarian aid to survivors from the Serenity's Hope." A long pause. Then, "Did you say Terran? There is no such species in Federation records." "That's correct, Admiral. This is humanity's first official contact with the Galactic Federation. We responded to a distress beacon and rescued 3,000 civilians from imminent reactor breach." "Impossible. We received no notification of any rescue operations in this sector." Zal then stepped up to the communication station. "Admiral, this is Captain Zal then. The humans speak the truth. My ship was destroyed 30 minutes ago. Without their intervention, all 3,000 refugees would be dead." Another pause, longer this time. "Captain Zal then, you are ordered to transfer to the Swift Justice immediately for debriefing." The unregistered vessel will stand down and prepare for boarding. Chen looked at her bridge crew, and Zal then saw expressions he was learning to recognize as human determination. Admiral, with respect, that's not going to happen. Captain Chen, you are in violation of multiple Federation statutes. Surrender immediately or we will be forced to take action. Admiral, Chen replied calmly, I have 3,000 Federation civilians aboard my ship. Many of them require ongoing medical treatment that cannot be interrupted. I cannot allow them to be transferred to vessels that lack proper medical facilities for their conditions. The Swift Justice has full medical capabilities. Dr. Kim's voice cut in from the medical bay. Admiral, I'm Dr. Sarah Kim, Chief Medical Officer of the Indomitable. I've reviewed your ship's medical specifications from our databases. Your facilities cannot handle 70% of the species currently under my care. Transfer at this time would result in significant casualties. How do you have access to classified ship specifications? Admiral Kreshta demanded. Captain Chen sighed. Admiral, we need to have a longer conversation about humanity's relationship with the Federation. But, that conversation needs to happen in a controlled environment, not while we're responsible for 3,000 lives. I'm setting course for the nearest Federation medical station. You're welcome to escort us. You will not dictate terms to the Federation Navy. The Swift Justice moved closer, its weapons beginning to charge. On the human bridge, Zal then watched the crew respond with practiced efficiency. Weapons came online, shields strengthened, and defensive systems activated, all without any apparent panic or excitement. Admiral, Chen said, her voice carrying a tone Zal then was learning to recognize as dangerous. I strongly advise against taking aggressive action. You have 3 Federation ships with approximately 900 crew members total. I have 1 ship with 3,000 Federation civilians who have already survived 1 disaster today. If you force me to choose between your safety and theirs, that choice is already made. Are you threatening Federation Navy vessels? I'm stating facts. My primary mission is the safety of refugees under my protection. Secondary considerations include avoiding diplomatic incidents that might interfere with future human-Federation relations. Tertiary considerations include the safety of Federation Navy personnel who might be considering actions that would endanger my refugees. Through the speakers, Zal then could hear urgent conversations happening on the Federation ships. Multiple voices spoke in different languages, but the tone was universally concerned. Unknown human vessel, came a new voice, calmer than the Admiral's. This is Captain Redhan of the destroyer Wind Dancer. We're reading some unusual energy signatures from your ship. What type of drive system are you using? Standard fusion antimatter hybrid with gravitational manipulation, replied the human chief engineer over the comm. Nothing fancy. Sir, those readings suggest your reactor is operating at efficiency levels 30% higher than theoretical maximum for that technology. Well, the engineer replied cheerfully, we made some modifications. Admiral Kreshta's voice returned, now noticeably strained. Human vessel, our sensors indicate your ship mass is approximately 4 times more than should be possible for its size. How are you maintaining structural integrity? Advanced metallurgy and engineering practices developed under high-gravity conditions, Chen replied. Admiral, perhaps we should continue this conversation at the medical station. My navigation officer indicates we can reach Starbase 47 in 6 days. Your ships are welcome to accompany us. 6 days? Starbase 47 is 9 days from this position at maximum hyperdrive. Not at our maximum hyperdrive, Chen said simply. Zal then watched as the human navigation officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Park, input coordinates into their system. The hyperdrive that engaged was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Where Federation hyperdrive created a smooth transition into faster-than-light travel, the human system seemed to tear reality apart and rebuild it around them. Yet somehow, the ship barely vibrated. Hyperdrive efficiency at 140% of Federation standard, reported Lieutenant Park. Arrival at Starbase 47 in 6 days, 14 hours. Through the communications array, Zal then could hear amazed conversations on all 3 Federation ships as their crews tried to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Admiral Kreshta, Chen continued, during our journey, I suggest your people review the historical records for any mention of Deathworld species or xenobiological impossibilities. You might also want to search for reports of unexplained ship sightings in areas where no Federation vessels should have been operating. Captain Chen, you're suggesting your people have been spying on the Federation for decades. Admiral, we've been watching you for 2 centuries. Spying suggests hostile intent. We've been learning. There's a difference. As the small fleet entered hyperspace, Zelden found himself in the human ship's observation lounge with Dr. Veltar and several other senior refugees. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they watched the Federation ship struggling to match the indomitable S speed. "They're having to operate their drives at maximum capacity just to keep up with us," observed Lieutenant Park, who had joined them off duty. "Our hyperdrive operates most efficiently at speeds that would burn out their systems." "Why?" Veltar asked. "What makes human technology so different?" "We build everything to survive the worst possible conditions," Park explained. "Our homeworld taught us that anything that can break will break, usually when you need it most. So we over-engineer everything. Our standard operating parameters include safety margins that most species would consider excessive." "Your people keep mentioning Earth's hostility," Zelden said. "In what ways?" Park laughed, but it wasn't a bitter sound. "Where do I start? Gravity that would crush most Federation species. An atmosphere that's toxic to about 60% of galactic civilization. Weather patterns that regularly produce wind speeds capable of destroying buildings. Geological activity that can level cities without warning. Biological hazards ranging from microscopic toxins to predators that could hunt most sentient species for sport. Yet your species not only survived but thrived," Veltar observed. "We did more than thrive. We conquered our planet so thoroughly that we had to start looking for new challenges. That's when we reached for the stars and found all of you." Through the ship's internal communication system, Captain Chen's voice requested the senior refugees join her in the main conference room. When they arrived, they found her reviewing holographic displays showing Federation space from a perspective none of them had ever seen before. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chen began, "I think it's time you understood exactly what humanity has been doing for the past 200 years. Lieutenant Park, please show them the monitoring stations." The hologram shifted to show dozens of installations throughout Federation space stations, asteroid bases, hidden facilities in nebulae and on rogue planets. Each one was marked with human symbols. "We've been watching," Chen continued. "Every major trade route, every naval base, every colony world. We've monitored your communications, studied your cultures, learned your technologies. We've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" Zelden asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "For this moment. First contact was always inevitable. The question was whether it would happen on our terms or yours. Today, when you needed help and no one else could provide it, we chose to reveal ourselves." Dr. Veltar studied the hologram with her trained physician's eye for detail. "These installations, they're all in positions where they could monitor but not interfere. You've been studying us like medical specimens." "In a way, yes. But not with hostile intent. Dr. Veltar, humans are curious by nature, but we're also cautious. We needed to understand the galactic community before we attempted to join it. We needed to know if you would accept a species like us." "A species like you?" Captain Chen gestured to another display, this one showing comparative data between humans and Federation species. "Doctor, look at those numbers. Human reaction times, physical strength, environmental adaptability, technological innovation rates in almost every measurable category, we exceed Federation averages by significant margins. You're not just different," Zelden realized. "You're superior. In some ways, yes. But that's exactly what worried us. History shows that when a technologically advanced species makes contact with less advanced civilizations, the results are rarely positive for both sides. We didn't want to be conquerors or gods. We wanted to be allies." "So you waited," Veltar said. "You waited for an opportunity to prove yourselves as helpers rather than threats." "We waited for 3,000 people to need saving, and for no one else to be in a position to save them," Chen confirmed. "Today, humanity's first official act as a galactic species was rescue and humanitarian aid. That sets a precedent for our future relationship." Through the conference room windows, they could see the Federation ship still struggling to maintain formation at the indomitable S cruising speed. The symbolic message was clear: humans could outdistance the Federation Navy without effort, but they chose to travel together instead. "What happens now?" Zelden asked. Now we reach Starbase 47, deliver 3,000 refugees to proper medical care, and begin the most important diplomatic mission in human history, Chen replied. And, Captain Zalven, we'd like you to help us make sure we do it right. Starbase 47 hung in space like a massive crystal flower, its bioengineered structures gleaming with the soft luminescence characteristic of Altarian architecture. As the human fleet approached, Zalven watched through the observation deck as dozens of Federation vessels scrambled to intercept them, not aggressively, but with the desperate urgency of officials faced with a situation completely outside their protocols. Incoming transmission from Starbase 47, reported Lieutenant Park. Priority Alpha classification. Captain Chen nodded. Put it through. The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing a tall, elegant figure with the distinctive blue skin and silver hair of the Altarian species. Multiple arms gestured as she spoke, a sign of extreme agitation among her people. Unknown human vessels, this is Administrator Yelnara of Starbase 47. You are approaching a classified medical facility with unauthorized ships. You must halt and submit to inspection immediately. Administrator Yelnara, Chen replied calmly, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Indomitable. We are transporting 3,000 medical refugees from the Serenity's Hope disaster. Many require immediate treatment beyond our ship's capabilities. The Serenity's Hope was destroyed 12 hours ago with all hands lost. We received confirmation from Admiral Kreshta's task force. Zalven stepped forward into the hologram's pickup range. Administrator, this is Captain Zalven. I can confirm that Admiral Kreshta was misinformed. The humans rescued everyone aboard my ship before its reactor breached. Administrator Yelnara's four eyes focused on him with visible relief, but her confusion only deepened. Captain Zalven, how is this possible? No rescue ships were dispatched to your sector. Because no Federation ships could have reached us in time, Dr. Veltar added, moving into view. Administrator, I am Dr. Veltar, Chief Medical Officer of the Serenity's Hope. The humans arrived within 2 hours of our distress beacon and evacuated 3,000 beings from 17 different species. Their medical capabilities are extraordinary. 17 species. Yelnara's multiple arms moved in what Zalven recognized as the Altarian gesture for overwhelming complexity. Our medical bay can handle perhaps 8 species simultaneously at full capacity. Administrator, Captain Chen interjected, that's exactly why we need to dock. My ship's medical bay is operating beyond safe parameters. We've maintained life support for species that require environmental conditions ranging from near absolute zero to molten metal temperatures. Some of our patients need medical care that only a full station can provide. Through the communications array, they could hear urgent conversations in multiple languages as the Starbase command staff tried to process this unprecedented situation. Human vessel, Yelnara finally said, you are cleared for emergency docking at Medical Bay 7. However, I must inform you that Federation security is en route. This situation will require extensive investigation. Understood, Administrator. We appreciate your assistance. As the Indomitable approached the docking bay, Zalven marveled at the size difference between the human ship and the station. Starbase 47 was designed to service the largest Federation vessels, yet the human ship dwarfed everything in the facility. More troubling, the station's automated systems seem to be having difficulty with the docking procedure. Their magnetic clamps aren't designed for our hull composition, reported the human engineering chief. We're about 30% denser than anything in their databases. Can you compensate? Chen asked. Already done. I've adjusted our docking collar to match their specifications. We'll be fine, but they're probably wondering why their equipment is reading impossible mass ratios. The docking procedure took twice as long as normal, but eventually the Indomitable successfully connected to the starbase. As the airlock opened, Zalven found himself in the unusual position of escorting human diplomats onto a Federation facility. The starbase receiving area was chaos. Medical teams rushed to handle an influx of patients beyond anything they had prepared for, while security personnel tried to maintain order without knowing how to classify their unexpected visitors. Administrator Yelnara arrived with a full diplomatic escort, her forearms gesturing rapidly as she spoke with what appeared to be Federation intelligence officers. Captain Chen, Yelnara said as they approached, I must ask you and your crew to submit to standard quarantine and identification procedures. Of course, Administrator. However, I should mention that my chief medical officer will need to continue supervising treatment for our most critical patients. Many of the treatment protocols we've developed are not in your medical databases. One of the intelligence officers, a stern-looking Corvanian with scales that suggested military background, stepped forward. Captain Chen, I am Agent Kordak of Federation Intelligence. You will surrender all sensor logs and navigation data from your ship immediately. Captain Chen studied him for a moment, then smiled in a way that made Zalden's survival instincts activate. Agent Kordak, I'm afraid that's not possible. This is not a request. You are operating unregistered vessels in Federation space. You will comply with all security measures. Agent Kordak, Chen replied, her voice maintaining its pleasant tone, let me clarify our situation. Humanity has been observing the Federation for 2 centuries without detection. We have detailed intelligence on every major installation, ship design, and security protocol in your space. We know the location of your classified research facilities, the real capabilities of your military vessels, and the actual defensive capabilities of this starbase. The agent's scales flushed darker, a sign of anger among his species. Are you threatening us? I'm providing context. We could have remained hidden indefinitely. We chose to reveal ourselves to save Federation lives. Now you can choose to treat us as enemies because we know too much, or as allies because we chose to help when help was needed. Administrator Yelnara raised all 4 arms in a gesture calling for calm. Agent Kordak, perhaps we should focus on the medical crisis before addressing security concerns. As if summoned by her words, Dr. Sarah Kim's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. Captain Chen, I need you in Medical Bay 3 immediately. We have a situation. They rushed through the starbase corridors, followed by Federation medical staff who were struggling to understand the treatment protocols being used on their own patients. Medical Bay 3 housed the most critical cases, beings who required environments so specialized that even the humans had been challenged to maintain them. Dr. Kim was working over a patient Zalden didn't recognize a crystalline being whose structure was slowly losing cohesion. Captain, this is a resonance entity from the Harmony worlds. Their physiology is based on quantum harmonic frequencies. They're dying because their harmonic pattern is destabilizing. Treatment options? Chen asked. Theoretically, we need to establish a quantum resonance field that matches their base frequency. Problem is, we don't have the equipment for quantum manipulation on that scale. Administrator Yelnara stepped forward. Dr. Kim, the Federation abandoned research into quantum medicine decades ago. The energy requirements were considered prohibitive. Administrator, Dr. Kim replied while continuing to work, humans don't abandon research because something is difficult. We just try harder. She looked up at Captain Chen. Captain, I need you to authorize emergency power protocols. What exactly are you planning? I'm going to turn our main deflector array into a quantum resonance projector. It's never been done before, but the theoretical framework is sound. Agent Kordak stepped forward. You cannot modify Federation station equipment without authorization. Dr. Kim looked at him with an expression Zalden was learning to recognize as human impatience. Agent, I'm not modifying station equipment. I'm modifying my ship's equipment to project a field through the station. But I need someone to clear the surrounding sectors because if this goes wrong, it might destabilize quantum fields within a 50-kilometer radius. The risk is acceptable, Administrator Yelnara decided quickly. Dr. Kim, you have full cooperation from our medical staff. What followed was a masterpiece of improvised engineering. Human technicians worked alongside Federation medical specialists, combining technologies in ways that neither species had considered possible. The human approach seemed to be based on the principle that any problem could be solved with sufficient application of energy and creative thinking. Quantum field generators online, reported the human engineering chief. Resonance frequency locked to patient's base harmonic pattern. Initiating field projection. The air around the crystalline patient began to shimmer with colors that didn't quite exist in normal space. Slowly, the patient's structural integrity began to stabilize. Their internal light, which had been dimming toward extinction, began to grow brighter. It's working, Dr. Kim said with obvious relief. Harmonic resonance is stabilizing. Patient vital signs are improving. Administrator Yelnara watched in amazement as the impossible became routine. Dr. Kim, this technique could revolutionize treatment for dozens of quantum-based species. It could, Dr. Kim agreed. But, it requires technology that most species consider too dangerous to develop. Humans build things that can kill us, then, figure out how to use them to save lives instead. Agent Kordak was taking notes on a portable recording device, his expression growing more concerned with each successful procedure. Captain Chen, your medical capabilities exceed Federation standards by several orders of magnitude. How many other technological advantages does humanity possess? Agent, that depends entirely on how this first contact proceeds, Chen replied carefully. Humanity could be a valuable ally to the Federation. We have solutions to problems you haven't solved, resources from worlds you can't inhabit, and perspectives developed under conditions you consider impossible. The question is whether the Federation wants allies or wants to control us. The Federation Council will need to review your technologies for security implications. Captain Chen's expression hardened slightly. Agent Kordak, let me be very clear about something. Humanity revealed itself by choice, not by accident or force. We have the technological capability to disappear again if we choose. The Federation can have our friendship and cooperation, but it cannot have our submission or our secrets without our consent. Through the medical bay's windows, they could see more Federation ships arriving, not medical vessels, but military cruisers and intelligence ships. The peaceful first contact was rapidly becoming a tense standoff. Captain, Lieutenant Park's voice called through the ship's communication system. We're receiving priority transmissions from Federation Command. They're demanding immediate access to our ship and crew. Response? Chen asked. Sir, I think they're about to find out that demanding things from humans isn't particularly effective. Dr. Veltar, who had been quietly observing the medical procedures, suddenly spoke up. Captain Chen, may I make a suggestion? Of course, Doctor. Invite them aboard. The humans exchanged glances, and Zhao then saw expressions of surprise and interest. Explain, Chen said. You've been talking about human capabilities, but they haven't seen them in context. Show them your ship. Show them how you live and work. Let them understand that you're not hiding superior technology to threaten them, you're revealing it to help them. Captain Chen considered this for a moment, then smiled. Dr. Veltar, you might have just prevented a war. Agent Kordak, Administrator Yelnara, would you like to tour a human starship? Agent Kordak's scales shifted to a pattern Zalden didn't recognize. Captain Chen, are you seriously offering to let Federation security personnel examine your vessel? I'm offering to let Federation representatives learn about humanity by seeing how we actually live and work. The choice is yours, you can treat us as a threat to be contained, or as a mystery to be understood. Administrator Yelnara's multiple arms moved in what Zalden recognized as eager agreement. Captain, I accept your invitation. This may be the most important diplomatic opportunity in Federation history. As they prepared for the first formal tour of a human vessel by Federation officials, Zalden reflected on how much had changed in just 2 days. They had gone from dying in space to witnessing the emergence of a new galactic power. The question now was whether that emergence would lead to alliance or conflict. Looking at Captain Chen's determined expression and Agent Kordak's suspicious demeanor, Zalden suspected the answer would depend on what the Federation representatives discovered about humanity in the next few hours. The tour of the Indomitable began in what Captain Chen called the Cultural Exchange Center, a section of the ship that had been hastily prepared to showcase human society without revealing classified technology. Agent Kordak examined every surface with his scanner, while Administrator Yelnara asked questions about everything from art displays to food preparation areas. This is fascinating, Yelnara said, studying a holographic display showing various human settlements across their homeworld. Your species developed civilization in so many different environments simultaneously. Earth forced us to adapt or die, explained Commander Rodriguez, who was serving as their guide. We have cities built on floating platforms because the land floods regularly. Underground cities because the surface is too dangerous. Cities in deserts, in frozen wastelands, on active volcanic regions. Humans don't look for easy places to live, we make difficult places livable. Agent Kordak paused at a display showing human children in what appeared to be training exercises. What are those juveniles doing? Physical education, Rodriguez replied. We start teaching survival skills early. Those children are learning to swim, climb, run long distances, and solve problems under pressure. By the time they reach adulthood, they can survive in conditions that would challenge most adult Federation citizens. You train your children for combat? We train them for life. Agent Kordak, everything on Earth is combat. Combat against gravity that tries to crush you. Combat against weather that changes without warning. Combat against biological hazards that can kill you in minutes. Combat against a planet that considers every day a test of your right to keep existing. They moved deeper into the ship, entering the engineering sections. Here, the Federation officials got their first close look at human technology in operation. The fusion reactors were immediately recognizable, but their efficiency ratings defied known physics. These readings are impossible, Agent Kordak stated flatly, checking his scanner against the reactor displays. You're achieving fusion efficiency rates that violate several thermodynamic principles. Chief Engineer Martinez grinned. Agent, we've found that most universal principles have exceptions if you hit them hard enough with enough energy. These reactors operate under pressures and temperatures that would be considered insanely dangerous by Federation standards. How do you prevent containment failure? Multiple redundant containment systems, each designed to handle loads that exceed the theoretical maximum for the system below it. We assume that everything will fail eventually, so we build accordingly. Administrator Yelnara was studying the reactor's construction with her engineer's eye. Chief Martinez, this reactor core is built from materials we've never encountered. What are they? Crystalline metal composites forged under the pressure conditions found at Earth's core. We literally recreate the pressure that creates diamonds, but with metallic structures. The result is materials that are stronger than anything that forms naturally under normal planetary conditions. How do you generate such pressures? Martinez led them to a viewing window that looked into the ship's industrial fabrication bay. Inside, massive machines were working with materials under conditions that made the Federation officials step back instinctively. Pressures that could crush starships, temperatures that could melt battle armor, electromagnetic fields that could disrupt most species' nervous systems. We call this area the Forge, Martinez explained. It's where we manufacture replacement parts and upgrade components. Those machines are operating in an environment that replicates the most extreme conditions found on Earth. To us, it's just another workshop. Agent Kordak was making rapid notes. Captain Chan, your industrial capabilities appear to exceed Federation manufacturing standards by several orders of magnitude. What safeguards prevent this technology from being used for weapons manufacturing? Agent, Captain Chen replied, everything we build can be used for weapons manufacturing. Our construction tools could level cities. Our mining equipment could tunnel through planetary crusts. Our transportation systems could deliver devastating payloads across interstellar distances. The difference is what we choose to do with them. And, what do you choose? We choose to build hospitals that can save lives under impossible conditions. Ships that can rescue thousands of people from certain death. Technologies that can solve problems other species consider unsolvable. They entered the ship's recreational area, where off-duty human crew members were engaging in activities that left the Federation officials speechless. Physical competitions that would injure most species, intellectual games that required processing speeds beyond normal biological limits, and artistic performances that demonstrated creativity combined with dangerous precision. A group of humans was engaged in something called zero-gravity rugby, a sport played in the ship's gymnasium under reduced artificial gravity. The players moved through three-dimensional space with impossible grace, changing direction and velocity in ways that suggested perfect spatial awareness and reaction times. How fast are their reflexes? Administrator Yelnara asked Dr. Kim, who was observing the game. Average human reaction time is about 30% faster than Federation standard, Dr. Kim replied. Combat-trained humans can react almost twice as fast as the average Federation citizen. It's a survival adaptation on Earth, slow reflexes mean death. Combat-trained? All our crew have basic combat training. Not because we expect to fight, but because emergency situations require combat-level reflexes and decision-making abilities. When systems fail and people are dying, you need to think and move like a soldier. Agent Kordak was becoming increasingly agitated. Captain Chan, your crew appears to be a military organization disguised as a civilian rescue vessel. Agent, our crew is a civilian organization trained to military standards. There's a difference, though I understand why you might not see it immediately. Explain the difference. Captain Chen gestured toward the recreational area where humans were engaged in activities ranging from competitive games to artistic pursuits to academic discussions. Military organizations are designed to break things and kill people efficiently. We're designed to fix things and save people efficiently. The training overlaps because both require quick thinking, precise execution, and the ability to function under extreme stress. They moved to the ship's medical research laboratory, where Dr. Kim was working with Federation medical staff to develop new treatment protocols based on the successful procedures they had performed. The laboratory contained equipment that seemed impossible: scanners that could analyze biological functions at the quantum level, fabrication units that could create custom medical devices in minutes, and treatment chambers that could maintain life support for species with completely incompatible environmental requirements simultaneously. Dr. Kim, Administrator Yelnara said, "Your medical technology could revolutionize healthcare throughout the Federation." Why did humanity develop such advanced medical capabilities? Because on Earth, medical emergencies happen under the worst possible conditions, Dr. Kim replied, calibrating a scanner that was analyzing tissue samples from 17 different species. "We can't afford to lose patients because our hospitals don't have the right equipment or our doctors don't know how to treat unusual conditions. So we developed medicine that can handle anything." Your equipment can treat species you've never encountered? Our equipment can analyze and adapt to any biological system based on fundamental biochemical principles. Carbon-based, silicon-based, quantum-coherent, energy pattern. We've developed treatment protocols for every theoretical form of life. Agent Kordak was studying the medical scanners with obvious concern. Dr. Kim, these devices could also be used for biological weapons research. They could, Dr. Kim agreed. They could also cure every disease in the galaxy. Agent, humans learned long ago that powerful tools can be used for creation or destruction. We choose creation because destruction is easy, any idiot can break things. Creating and healing requires intelligence, skill, and dedication. The tour concluded in the ship's command center, where the Federation officials got their first look at human command and control capabilities. The bridge was simultaneously more advanced and more practical than anything in Federation space systems, designed for maximum efficiency under crisis conditions, with backup systems for the backup systems. Captain Chen, Administrator Yelnara said, "I need to ask directly, what does humanity want from the Federation?" "What we've always wanted, Administrator: knowledge, friendship, and the opportunity to help solve problems that are too big for any one species to handle alone." "And if the Federation decides humanity is too dangerous to be allowed full membership?" Captain Chen's expression became very serious. "Administrator, that would be unfortunate for everyone involved. Humanity doesn't respond well to being told we're too dangerous to be free." Agent Kordak stepped forward. "Captain Chen, you're suggesting that humanity would resist Federation authority?" "Agent, I'm stating that humanity will never submit to Federation authority. We revealed ourselves as equals seeking partnership, not as subjects requesting permission to exist. The Federation can accept us as allies, or it can try to control us and discover why that's impossible, but it cannot have us as obedient subjects." "You would fight the entire Federation?" Agent Kordak, Captain Chen replied calmly, "Humanity has been fighting impossible odds since we first stood upright on a world that actively tried to kill us. Fighting the Federation would just be another Tuesday for us. But we'd rather be friends." Through the bridge windows, they could see the Federation fleet that had assembled around Starbase 47. Dozens of ships representing the military might have hundreds of worlds. A force that could conquer entire star systems. "Captain," Admiral Kreshta's voice came through the communications array, "you are ordered to surrender your vessel for inspection and turn over all crew members for interrogation." "Admiral," Captain Chen replied, "that order is refused." "Captain Chen, you are outnumbered 50-1. Admiral, you're assuming that numbers matter." "Lieutenant Park, please show the Admiral our defensive capabilities." The Indomitable S shields activated, but, instead of the standard energy barriers used by Federation ships, something entirely different happened. Space around the human ship seemed to bend and twist, creating distortions that made targeting impossible. Energy readings spiked beyond the Federation's sensors' ability to measure. "Admiral," Captain Chen continued, "our shields are rated to deflect the main guns of our own battleships. Our weapons are designed to crack planets. Our engines can outrun anything in your fleet. We built everything to survive the worst conditions we could imagine, then added safety margins on top of that." However, she continued, her tone becoming more conciliatory, We didn't come here to fight. We came here to save lives and begin a friendship. Admiral, the choice is yours. You can try to force us to submit and discover why that's impossible, or you can work with us to find solutions that benefit everyone. Agent Kordak and Administrator Yelnara exchanged glances. The Federation had never encountered a species that could simultaneously demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority and genuine desire for peaceful cooperation. Captain Chen, Administrator Yelnara said carefully, what would humanity consider acceptable terms for joining the Federation? Partnership, not membership. Mutual cooperation, not subordination. Shared knowledge and resources, not taxation and regulation. We want to be allies, Administrator, not subjects. The Federation Council will need to consider these terms. Of course. In the meantime, we'll continue providing medical assistance to the refugees and working with your medical staff to develop new treatment protocols. We're not going anywhere, Administrator, but we're also not surrendering our freedom. As the tour concluded, Zalven realized he had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history, first contact between two civilizations where the newly discovered species was clearly more advanced than the established galactic community. The Federation would have to choose between adaptation and conflict. Looking at the determined expressions on both sides, he suspected the next few days would determine the future of galactic civilization. The Federation Council chamber on Starbase 47 had never hosted a meeting quite like this one. Representatives from 43 different species sat in their environmental pods, while holographic displays showed data that challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic civilization. At the center of it all, Captain Saracen sat calmly in a chair designed for Altarian physiology, seemingly unaffected by the weight of history pressing down on the room. Chancellor Velkoth of the Centauri Alliance spoke first, her crystalline voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation matrix. Captain Chen, this council has reviewed the data provided by Agent Kordak and Administrator Yelnara. Humanity's technological capabilities represent a significant disruption to galactic balance. Chancellor, Chen replied respectfully, humanity represents an opportunity for galactic advancement. The question is whether the Federation chooses to embrace that opportunity or fear it. Senator Threx Nal of the warrior clans leaned forward in his environmental suit. Captain, your species possesses military capabilities that could threaten every world in Federation space. How do we know you won't use them? Senator, humanity has possessed these capabilities for 2 centuries without using them aggressively. We revealed ourselves through an act of rescue, not conquest. Our first official action was saving Federation lives when no one else could. But, you also admit to extensive surveillance of our space, interjected Councillor Yarseth of the Trade Consortium. You've been spying on us for decades. Dr. Veltar, who had been invited to testify as a witness to the rescue, stood to address the council. Honored representatives, may I speak as someone who owes her life to human intervention? Chancellor Velkoff gestured approval. Dr. Veltar, the council recognizes your expertise and experience. Thank you, Chancellor. I have observed humanity for 3 days under extreme circumstances. I have watched their medical teams save lives they had no obligation to save. I have seen their engineers solve problems we considered impossible. Most importantly, I have seen their character when faced with difficult choices. Explain, prompted Senator Threx Nal. When the humans could have prioritized their own safety, they chose to save everyone aboard our ship. When they could have abandoned our most critically injured patients, they developed new medical procedures to keep them alive. When they could have used their technological advantages to dominate this negotiation, they chose to share their capabilities openly. These are not the actions of conquerors. Agent Kordak activated his speaking platform. Dr. Veltar, while Captain Chen's crew showed admirable dedication, we cannot ignore the strategic implications of their capabilities. Their monitoring stations throughout Federation space represent a massive intelligence operation. Agent Kordak, Captain Chen said, would you prefer that we had remained hidden? That the first time you encountered humanity was when we decided you were a threat to be eliminated rather than an ally to be approached? Are you threatening us, Captain? I'm pointing out that if humanity intended harm to the Federation, you would never have known we existed until it was too late to matter. We chose revelation over concealment, cooperation over conquest. That choice should tell you something about our intentions. Chancellor Velkoth raised her primary appendages for silence. Captain Chen, this council needs to understand humanity's long-term goals. What does your species ultimately want from galactic civilization? Captain Chen stood, her simple human physiology somehow commanding attention in a room full of beings adapted to dozens of different worlds. Chancellor, humanity wants what every intelligent species wants: to grow, to learn, to explore, and to build something better than what existed before. We want to solve the problems that divide us and discover the possibilities that unite us. Specifically, pressed Counselor Yarseth. Specifically, we want to contribute to galactic medicine, engineering, and exploration. We want to share our solutions to problems you haven't solved, and learn your solutions to problems we haven't encountered. We want to help defend the Federation against threats that require our unique capabilities, and receive assistance when we face challenges that require your expertise. And if we refuse, asked Senator Threx Nal. Then, we remain what we have been for 2 centuries, a hidden civilization watching from the shadows. But, Senator, that would be a loss for everyone involved. The Federation would miss the opportunity to access technologies that could improve life for billions of citizens. Humanity would miss the chance to join the greatest cooperative venture in galactic history. Counselor Zephran of the Science Coalition activated his platform. Captain Chen, our xenobiologists have studied your crew's physical capabilities. Your species appears to be biologically superior to most Federation citizens in numerous measurable categories. Counselor, humanity developed under harsher conditions than most Federation species. That's not superiority, that's adaptation to necessity. The practical result is the same. How do we know humanity won't develop a superiority complex that leads to domination attempts? Dr. Veltar spoke again without waiting for formal recognition. Counselor Zephran, I have observed human behavior under stress. When faced with beings weaker than themselves, which includes all of us, their instinct is to protect and assist, not to dominate. This appears to be a fundamental aspect of their psychology. Dr. Veltar makes an important point, added Administrator Yelnara, who was attending as a technical advisor. Human medical staff worked tirelessly to save patients from species they had never directly encountered. They adapted their technology to treat conditions they had only studied theoretically. They risked their own safety to ensure that every refugee received optimal care. Chancellor Velkoff consulted her advisors briefly, then addressed the assembly. Captain Chen, this council has serious concerns about integrating a species with such overwhelming technological and physical advantages into the Federation structure. Captain Chen nodded. Chancellor, I understand those concerns. But, consider this: humanity chose to reveal itself through rescue operations rather than military demonstrations. We chose to share our capabilities openly rather than maintaining strategic advantages through secrecy. We chose to request partnership rather than demand submission. Your point? My point is that humanity has already demonstrated how we intend to use our advantages to help rather than harm, to build rather than destroy, to lift others up rather than keep them down. Judge us by our actions, not our capabilities. Senator Threx Nal stood in his environmental suit. Captain, your words are reassuring, but the warrior clans have learned to be cautious of species with superior military capabilities. Senator, humanity has superior capabilities in many areas, but we also have limitations. We cannot survive in the environmental conditions that many of your species consider normal. We lack the natural telepathic abilities of the Esper Coalition. We don't have the instinctive social cooperation of the hive minds. We need partners, Senator, not subjects. Zal then, who had been observing from the witness section, requested permission to speak. Honored Council, may I share my perspective as the senior Federation officer who first encountered humanity? Proceed, Captain Zal then, Chancellor Velkoff approved. 3 days ago, my ship was dying in space. 3,000 Federation citizens were facing certain death. No Federation vessel could reach us in time. When humanity revealed itself, it was not to demand recognition or payment or territorial concessions. It was to save lives that no one else could save. Continue. I have commanded starships for 30 years. I have seen how different species react under extreme stress. The humans never wavered, never hesitated, never considered abandoning the difficult cases to focus on easier ones. They committed completely to saving everyone, regardless of species, regardless of difficulty, regardless of personal risk. And, your recommendation? My recommendation is that the Federation has been offered a gift beyond measure alliance with a species that combines overwhelming capability with genuine compassion. Refusing that gift out of fear would be the greatest strategic mistake in Federation history. The council chamber fell silent as representatives considered the testimony. Finally, Chancellor Velkov spoke. Captain Chen, this council will recess to consider humanity's request for partnership status. However, I will say that the testimony we have heard today suggests that humanity represents opportunity rather than threat. Thank you, Chancellor. While the council deliberates, humanity will continue providing humanitarian assistance wherever needed. We're not going anywhere. 3 days later, the Federation Council announced its decision. Humanity would be granted provisional partnership status, not membership, but something entirely new. A category created specifically for species that could contribute as equals rather than participants seeking protection. Captain Chen received the news in Starbase 47's observation lounge, where she stood watching human medical teams working alongside Federation specialists to establish new treatment protocols that would save lives across the galaxy. Captain, Admiral Kreshta said as he approached, I owe you an apology. My initial response was based on fear rather than assessment. Admiral, your response was based on experience. Most first contacts don't involve one species possessing overwhelming advantages over the other. Your caution was appropriate. What happens now? Captain Chen gestured toward the medical teams. Now we get to work. Humanity has problems that Federation knowledge can help solve. The Federation has problems that human capabilities can address. We built something together that neither of us could achieve alone. And the monitoring stations? Will become joint research facilities. Admiral, we've been watching the Federation for 2 centuries. We know where your blind spots are, where your early warning systems fail, where your patrol routes leave gaps. We can help fix those problems. Admiral Kreshta studied her carefully. Captain, why does humanity really want to join galactic civilization? You could have remained hidden indefinitely. Captain Chen smiled, and, for the first time, Zal then, saw it as an expression of genuine joy rather than diplomatic politeness. Admiral, humanity has always been driven by a simple principle: when someone needs help and you have the ability to provide it, you help. For 2 centuries, we watched the Federation struggle with problems we knew how to solve. We stayed hidden because we weren't sure our help would be welcomed. And, now we know. 3,000 lives saved. New medical procedures developed. Technologies shared openly. Problems solved that couldn't be solved before. She paused, looking out at the stars. Admiral, humanity spent 2 centuries watching the galaxy. Now we get to help improve it. 6 months later, Zal then stood on the bridge of his new ship, a joint Federation human design that incorporated technologies from both civilizations. The vessel was faster, stronger, and more capable than anything previously built, yet its primary mission remained humanitarian assistance and exploration. Through the viewports, he could see the first joint Federation human colony taking shape around a star that neither species could have colonized alone. Human environmental engineering was making a marginal world habitable, while Federation social sciences were ensuring that dozens of different species could live there in harmony. Captain Zal then, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a distress beacon from the Sigma sector." Response time? 18 hours at maximum speed, sir. Set course immediately. And, send a message to the nearest human vessel, let them know we might need assistance with a complex rescue operation. Yes, sir. Sir, the humans are requesting permission to join us even though their ship could reach the distress beacon 6 hours before we could. Zal then smiled, understanding now what Captain Chen had meant about humanity's fundamental principles. Of course they are. Grant permission. We work together now. As his ship entered hyperspace alongside its human counterpart, Zal then reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. No one traveled alone anymore when help was available. No one faced impossible odds alone when allies were willing to share them. The universe was still dangerous, still full of challenges that tested every species' will to survive. But, now, when the impossible happened and no aid was expected, everyone knew that Deathworlders would arrive. And they would never arrive alone. Humanity had kept its promise. They had become the allies they claimed they wanted to be. And, in doing so, they had made the galaxy a place where rescue was always possible, where no problem was truly unsolvable, and where the phrase "no aid was expected" was becoming nothing more than history.